This is Muscle Central. I'm Michael Diamond. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and leave a comment. Okay, recently there's been a little tension on the RX Muscle channel, most specifically at the After Hours podcast. Now, it's centered around Gregg Valentino. Now, Gregg Valentino does other is on other shows, on other podcasts. So is a bunch of the other guys from the RX Muscle. Lee Priest is all over the place. John Romano is on numerous podcasts. That's all well and good. Gregg Valentino is now part of the Jerzey, Straight Out of Jerzey podcast. It's Joe Zapata, and that's not an issue. What happened was some things that Gregg said on the podcast bothered somebody. This guy Jon Scuderi, obviously he goes back with the After Hours crew before I was watching the shows, going back a number of years. He was watching, and there were some things that were said that Gregg said that bothered him, and he got into the chat saying some things. Now, keep in mind, Gregg has no filter, but it was nothing that he said, and it was about RX Muscle. He was saying how he's bored by the After Hours show a lot of times. He doesn't want to talk bodybuilding. He's not interested in that. He misses what After Hours was, what it started out to be. 5 friends getting together once a week to chat, to shoot the breeze. And we were privileged enough to sit in on that conversation, and it was entertaining, and he misses that. And that's what he was saying. And I guess Jon Scuderi felt that he was putting down, bad-mouthing the RX Muscle and the After Hours crew, and he got involved with the live chat. Now, obviously, he contacted Dave Palumbo. On the last After Hours podcast, John makes an appearance there. He comes on towards the end of the podcast. I don't think anybody but Dave, Gregg Valentino didn't know he was coming on. And when he came on, he pretty much went at Gregg and said a lot of things. You can see Gregg really annoyed, to say the very least. And he also said some things about Mr. G and Jimmy the Bull. Gregg had a little bit of a say. And then the show ended. Like I said, I don't think anybody knew, including Gregg, that this guy was coming on. Gregg was obviously teed off about it, contacts Gregg, they smooth things out. You know what, these guys have been friends for forever. And they've gone at it on the After Hours show and on other podcasts on RX Muscle. And they don't always agree with everything, with each other on everything. And friends can argue and disagree about things, but they still love each other at the end of the day. And it's not an issue. Okay, now Gregg is a little annoyed with this. He goes back with Joe and they make another video, and he's gonna really give his side of the whole thing. He's gonna say what he never got a chance to say on the After Hours show. This is also a live show, and there's a live chat there. And Jon Scuderi is watching, and he jumps in there. They invite him on, so him and Gregg can hash things out, and everything was hashed out. By time the show ended, by time Jon was left, everything was fine between him and Gregg. He made his apologies. He said he's sorry for the things that he said about Jimmy the Bull and Mr. G, and everything is all fine. He said he felt that the rxmuscle crew, the After Hours crew, is being disrespected when Gregg was talking about it. But like I said, it's nothing he's never said before other places, nothing he hasn't said before in other places, and he hasn't said on After Hours. So it's no secret that he feels that way. But Jon also said that he felt like Joe Zapata is trying to, with his podcast here, trying to be the next After Hours. Now, when this podcast where Jon came on and apologized, when it started, Joe Zapata gave his little speech in the beginning, and one of the things he tried to emphasize is that he's not trying to be the next After Hours. And as this podcast was going on, it came out of his mouth a couple times. Oh, no, I'm not trying to be the next After Hours. I'm not trying to be the next After Hours. But let's go back to the video in question, the video that this Jon saw that got him a little riled up, which caused him to say some things that he said. We're going to go back to that video. I went back and I watched it and I listened to everything very, very carefully. And at the very least, 5 or 6 times during that podcast, Joe referred to that podcast as the next After Hours. That podcast, he had, along with Gregg, you had Lee Priest, Mr. G, and Jimmy the Bull. You got the whole rxmuscle crew there. Like I said, I don't know if it slipped by other people, they didn't pick up on it, but when I went back and I watched it again, on at least 5 or 6 occasions, he did indeed refer to his new show, his podcast, as the new After Hours show. Whether he is saying it, not realizing it, you know what, you might say it once, maybe, not realizing, talking out, thinking in your head, oh, I like the way Dave does his stuff. That rxmuscle is a good show. I'm going to pattern my show after that. I might be in your head. You might slip out and say it once. But when you say it 2, 3, 4, 5, or even more times during the same podcast, it leads me to believe that maybe in your head, you think you are going to be the new After Hours. To bring this video to an end, yeah, there was some brief tension at rxmuscle at the After Hours podcast, but at the end of the day, these guys are lifelong friends, and everything is fine. Everything is hunky-dory. As for Joe Zapata and his new channel and podcast, I don't know. I'm going by what he said in a previous podcast on numerous occasions during the podcast. Maybe he is trying to be the new After Hours. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, let me know in the comments section. This is Michael Diamond. I'd like to thank you for watching Muscle Central.